Napoleon Bonaparte was well known for being one of the greatest generals in history. He pulled off untold miraculous victories, conjured from thin air, which few other generals would have been able to achieve. In fact, according to one estimate, Mr. Bonaparte was mathematically the best general in human history. He defeated the Austrians, the Prussians, the Saxons and the Russians, and when he was done, few dared stand in his way. Many will tell you that Napoleon's first major defeat since becoming emperor was the Battle of Aspern-Essling, when Austrian armies floated boats down the river to cut off half of Napoleon's armies on one side of the river, and then attacked his released forces, who were now deprived of resupply and reinforcement. This defeat forced the man to beat a hasty retreat out of Austria into his own territory, and showed that Napoleon could be beaten. However, many people haven't heard of a much more devastating defeat Napoleon suffered that occurred 2 entire years before the Battle of Aspern-Essling. Today, we shall learn what happened on that fateful day, in July 1807, when Napoleon suffered arguably the most humiliating defeat of his military career. I think I was born a few weeks before the incident. Daily life in the hutch was not too good, really. It just consisted of trotting about the place with your buddies until somebody came to buy us. Eventually that July, the day came when, to the left of me, my brother Rory was plucked up by his neck and flung out of the hutch and into the carrier cage. 2 minutes later, I met the same fate. We didn't know what had happened or where we were going. All we knew was that we'd been whisked away from the only life we'd ever known. I have made a great many blunders in my military career, but this one takes the cake. I remember a bit after our victory over the Russians, Napoleon told me to organise like a rabbit hunting event, so he and his commanders could have fun shooting at rabbits, and so I went out and purchased 1,000 rabbits. It turns out there's a reason that you use wild and not domesticated rabbits for shooting. The rabbits were set up in cages where the hunt was to begin. This day would determine the fate of every furry friend on this field. I mean, say what you want about the hutch for keeping us in such small cages, at least they fed us. When we were delivered to wherever our new owners were bringing us, they hadn't fed us all day. And for reference, a rabbit can only go 12 hours without food, so we were on the brink of starving to death. I get that I have a bunch of humans watching this, so for you guys, just imagine you hadn't eaten for a month. That was the state we were in right now. The rabbits were let out of the cages and ordered to scatter into the forest. The stage was set for one of the greatest battles of the Napoleonic Wars. So the cage doors opened, and we wandered out. We were looking for anything, absolutely anything, to eat. And then we saw it, a group of men standing nearby. And we all knew what this meant. The only reason that we'd ever seen a human ever approach a rabbit was to feed us. And obviously, if they had waited so long to feed us, they must have spent their time preparing a very, very special meal for us. We all knew that this was going to be the best meal of our lives. So with that, the rabbits began their onslaught, charging straight for Napoleon, ready to break through his position and claim victory. This would be a battle of human versus beast, paw versus gun, and bullets versus fur. And when the dust settled, not everyone would be walking out of this alive. No, that's not what happened. We didn't just start all charging at him, willy-nilly. That would never work. You see, us rabbits are very, very skilled at acquiring food. If you all charge straight at him, that is the least effective food acquisition method that I can think of. If you want to maximise return on investment, you have to divide into groups and flank the food giver from multiple angles. It was truly a horrifying sight. Hundreds of rabbits began swarming Napoleon and piling on top of him. This wasn't a rabbit hunt, this was an attack. As we literally began piling on top of each other to get to the humans, we began to hear loud booming noises, and they also had these little string things that made a huge crack noise when they waved them about. And I can remember thinking, amazing! They've developed a whole new way to tell us that food is on the way. Dwarfed by the sheer scale of the attack of the Eryctolagus cuniculus, Napoleon and his men had no choice but to fall back. They hopped into the imperial carriage and drove off, fleeing the attack. He left! He actually left! Without giving us any food! Why would you lead us on like that? Well, why would you convince us that we're going to get food and then just go to leave us starving in a field? Yet, for all the research I did for this video, I actually couldn't find out what happened to the rabbits. Pretty much every account I've read of this just ends with, and Napoleon's carriage drove away, whoo, off into the sunset. Presumably the rabbits did all just starve to death before Napoleon got back. Maybe some of them got eaten by wolves. Tame rabbits cannot survive in the wilderness. But either way, we have no idea what happened to the rabbits. What did he say? He says we have absolutely no idea what happened to you guys. Yeah, he would say that, wouldn't he? Oh, we escaped into the forest and established our own secret civilization that's far more advanced than the ones you humans have set up. Fun fact, we landed on the moon in the 1940s, decades before you did. And we even have rabbits still living on the moon. Yeah, it was actually us that shot JFK in the 60s.